Shalom. We continue with our study in Pirkei Avot, and we are in chapter 1, of course, and Mishna 9, Tet. Shimon ben Shatach Omer. So we already learned that Yehuda ben Tabai and Shimon ben Shatach were the masters of the generation of the couples. Of course, prior to them, the couple was Yehoshua ben Perachia and Nittai Ha'arbeli. So Yehuda ben Tabai and Shimon ben Shatach received the tradition, which means the Torah, as it was given at the mountain of Sinai without any changes, from Yehoshua ben Perachia and Nittai Ha'arbeli. Now we are going to study a principle or a saying that was said by Shimon ben Shatach. Shimon ben Shatach was not only the chief rabbi of his generation, he was also as we have said before, he was also the brother of Shlomit HaMalka, Shlomit the queen, who was the wife of Yanai HaMelech, who was not such a good king. So let's see what Shimon ben Shatach says. Shimon ben Shatach Omer, Heve marbe lachkor et ha'edim, והווה זהיר בדבריך, שמה מתוכם ילמדו לשקר. Shimon ben Shatach continues in that vein that we have mentioned in earlier lecture, and regarding the witnesses, regarding the judges, how they should behave with tremendous integrity is demanded from them. And talking to the judge, we say to him, Heve marbe lachkor et ha'edim. You have to be very careful when you interrogate and investigate the witnesses, who come to give their testimony for the two litigants who appear before the Dayan, before the judge. So the judge must be very careful to investigate well and interrogate the witnesses so that he can be sure of their honesty. So therefore he says, Heve marbe lachkor et ha'edim. It's not enough to just ask them a question or two. You have to make it even more than that. Veheve zahir bidvarecha. Now the judge also should be very careful in what he says to the litigants or to the witnesses. Shema mitocham ilmedu leshaker. If the judge is not careful, he might say the wrong words, which might give an idea to one of the witnesses or to one of the litigants, something upon which he can base his words and lie, and it's because of the mistake that the judge has made. Now, we go to the next couple, which means the next generation after the generation of Shimon ben Shatach and Nittai Ha'arbeli. Shemaya ve'Avtalion kibelu mehem. Shemaya ve'Avtalion are a couple of tremendous Torah scholars. They were the head of the generation in Torah, of course, but they were also sons of converts. And they became extremely famous because they were also the teachers of Hillel and Shammai, the following couple, which we will learn soon. Shemaya ve'Avtalion kibelu mehem. Shemaya, who was the leader of the Sanhedrin, and Avtalion, who was the Avbeddin, the supreme judge. And they received the tradition from whom? From Yehuda ben Tabai and Shimon ben Shatach. Shemaya Omer. Let's see what Shemaya, one of his principles that are extremely important in his life was, Ehav et hamelacha. Love work. ושנא את הרבנות, ואל תתוודע לרשות. I will explain it my way. First he says, אהב את המלאכה, love work. In other words, one should not remain idle, because if you have no work and you don't study Torah, what happens is that you're going to become extremely bored. When someone is bored, then he might go into doing sins. It is a known philosophy. Usna et הרבנות. Now, literally it means hate a rabbinical position? No. Rabbanut means here leadership. According to Shemaiah, it's better not to be a leader, because a leader carries with him many kinds of responsibilities that might cause him to do many things that are lacking integrity. ואל תתוודע לרשות. Do not be acquainted with the authorities, which means do not go into politics. Do we understand why? Of course we do. Avtalion, the second rabbi, Avtalion said, Chachamim hizaharu bedivrechem. He's talking to the sages that they should be very careful the way they teach. They should be very careful what kind of words they should choose to teach people. Shematachuvu chovat galut, because if they make a mistake and no one is there to rectify that mistake, this maybe will cause them to be punished one day, and one of the punishments is to go into exile. Vetiglu limkom ma'im hara'im. You might just end up going to a place which here it's called the bad waters, which means you go and you meet other disciples who have already learned your teaching with the mistake included, and that's a terrible thing to happen, right? וישתו התלמידים הבאים אחריכם וימותו. And then what happens? Through your wrong teachings, there will be also disciples who absorb your teachings, right? If you make a mistake, that mistake is going to be the inheritance of the Talmidim, of the disciples. ונמצא שם שמיים מתחלל. One day, it might be discovered that there is a mistake made by whom? By the sages. And that will cause a tremendous desecration of the name of God, name of heaven. The next couple is Hillel and Shammai. Now, this couple are very famous. Hillel, no one was greater than Hillel in his generation and many generations after. And his second is Shammai. Both of them were great scholars with different characters. According to the character of Hillel, here is what he used to say. First, you have to understand that Hillel and Shammai received the tradition from whom? From Shemaiah and Avtalion, their respective teachers. But now we will see what Hillel has to say in accordance with with the philosophy of his life. Heve mitalmidav shel Aharon. Try to be always from the disciples of Aharon HaKohen. The brother of Moshe. What is so special about Aharon? Well, here is how he behaved in life. Ohev shalom verodev shalom. He loved the ways of peace and he pursued the ways of peace. Ohev et habiriot. He loves people. He loves the Jews. Karevan la Torah. He brings them close to the learning of Torah. We have to clarify one thing here. Our sages explained that Aharon HaKohen has a very, very great kind of character. He even was brought to lie sometimes for the sake of heaven. In order to bring peace among two people, he would even lie to one of them. Let's say two were in great dispute and they don't want to talk to each other. Here is Aharon the Kohen, the priest, and he comes to one of them and he says, let's call him Shimon, and his friend is Reuven. So he would come to him and say, Shimon, do you know? I heard that Reuven was so sorry for what he said to you, and he's so shy, he doesn't know how to approach you, even though this was a lie, but he did it for the purpose of peace. This was a tremendous psychological effect, that Shimon, when he heard that, immediately his heart became softened and he came towards Reuven. When Reuven and Shimon saw each other, they hugged each other and peace was established between them. That's one example of how Aaron HaKohen behaved all his life. Why is that? Because by nature, Ohevet HaBiriot, he loved people. He wants them to be always happy and to be in peace. If there is no peace, there is no happiness. And that's why he searched always for ways how to bring peace among people. And what was the purpose? Why did he strive so much to make peace between people, to establish peace between people? Because this way he will have an influence over them. Karevan la Torah. This way he can appeal to them to come and be close to Torah study. In other words, that doesn't mean that he did it only for that purpose, but one of the reasons how we know that he loved people is by seeking their well-being, and by bringing them to the Torah. He knows he brings them into the life which will cause them to have Olam Haba, the world to come. Since the words of Hillel are so important, other principles of his were registered. Hu haya omer, he used to say. Now let's clarify one point. That doesn't mean that this was the only thing that Hillel had to suggest. I mean, his Torah was enormous. His teachings are everywhere in the Talmud and the Mishna. So this is just a philosophy by which he always he lived. Hu haya omer, negid shema avat shemeh, udla mosif yasef. Hu haya omer, he used to say, negid shema avat shemeh. If a person pursues a life of publicity, he wants his name to be known, famous, celebrated. At the end, he might have a bad end. Negad avat shemeh, maybe his name will be spoiled and will be destroyed. Udla mosif yasef, and if one does not learn Torah and continues, and he does not increase the amount of Torah that he has, he might just die. Udla yalif ketala hayav, and if one does not study Torah, he will be liable to death. Well, we understand that Torah is our life. Ki hayecha ve'orech yamecha. It says in the Bible, because the Torah is our life and the length of our days. If one does not study the Torah, it's like if he just made his life vain, no usefulness to it, and that's exactly what we call death. Udeishtamesh betaga halaf. If one, for example, uses the crown of greatness when he is not really that great, but he's using that crown, halaf, he will die too, he will fade away. That's one of the teachings of Hillel, by which he was extremely careful. Hu haya omer, another saying of Hillel, Im en ani li, mili. If I am not for myself, who is going to be for me? Of course, he's talking about spiritual matters. If one does not accumulate mitzvot and learning Torah, then when he goes to to heaven, can he count on his friends, for example, to help him? It's only your mitzvot and your Torah that can help you. But no one else can help you. Im en anili mili. If I am not for myself, if I don't take care of myself by doing the mitzvot and learning Torah, mili, who's going to be for me? וכשאני לעצמי. But at the same time, we have to keep in mind, וכשאני לעצמי, מה אני? But if I count only on myself, then who am I? Of course, this suggests that one should need always a teacher. You cannot learn by yourself. That's one explanation. Another explanation is, if one counts only on his suggestions and does not ask for the suggestion and the opinion of others, then he should think that he is not that much. Ma'ani, who am I if I count only on myself? Another teaching of Hillel, he is a famous saying, Ve'im lo achshav ematai. If not now, when? Because people have the tendency to always say, well, I have time. Tomorrow I'll do it. Well, that doesn't go. In the life of Torah, whatever you can do it now, because you never know what happens. It's possible that you have a plan to do it, but you will not have the possibility to do it. Right? Life is in the hands of God. We don't know what's going to be with us. Therefore, whatever you have to do, do it now. Don't wait. Now let's see the sayings of Shammai. We are in Mishna 15. Shammai says, Aseh Toratcha keva. Make sure your learning of Torah is for always. You don't stop. You don't learn one day and then the next day you don't learn. Our sages said that the Torah says, Im yom ta'azveni, yomayim e'ezveka. The Torah, so to speak, the Torah says, if you abandon me one day, I will abandon you for 2 days. Which means, if a person, as long as you keep it every day, steadiness is the word here, keva. To be steady with the learning of Torah, then it comes out to be a great deed. But if you do it today, tomorrow not, and every time you vacillate, every time only when I can. No, even Maimonides brings in his Jewish code of law, he says that even a person who needs charity to survive is under the obligation to learn Torah. Even a person who has many children and is extremely busy, right, raising them, nevertheless he is not free of not learning Torah. You have to learn Torah no matter what is your situation. If you are rich and full of business, that doesn't mean you are exempt of learning Torah. You have to learn Torah. If you are poor, you have to learn Torah. Our sages say in Masechet Yoma, it says there that if a person after he lives his life in this world, when he goes to heaven, if he did not learn Torah, they will tell him, why didn't you learn Torah? So he might say, because I was very poor. I had to work very hard. I didn't have the time. So they will say to him, were you poorer than Hillel? Hillel is very known about, in the beginning of his life, how poor he was. That he had to split his own income, which was very, very small, and give half for the person who stands at the door of the house of study to let him in. And with the rest, he survived with his family. So he was extremely poor. So they say to him, were you poorer than Hillel? Or let's say a person was very rich. He did not learn Torah. He didn't have time. So they will tell him, why didn't you learn Torah? He would say, I was very rich. So I didn't have too much business. So I didn't have any time. Oh yes? Were you richer than Rabbi Elazar ben Kharsom, another great sage who was extremely rich? The Talmud tells us that he had 1,000 boats, 1,000 villages, and yet he himself, he did not bring himself into enjoying his wealth. He would take a little bit of food on his shoulders, and he would go by foot for many, many days, for 6 months or more, for the purpose to reach the house of study so he can learn all the time. So, and that's how people, and let's say you are a very handsome man, and they tell you, why didn't you learn Torah? I was very handsome. My evil inclination did not permit me to learn Torah. So they would say to him, were you more handsome than Yosef, the righteous, Yosef the son of Yaakov? He was the most handsome man, and yet he did not he did not let himself live a life of nothing. He did learn Torah as much as possible. Anyway, this is on the side. So Shammai says, Aseh Toratcha keva. Make sure your learning of Torah is steady, without any interruptions. Second saying of Shammai, Emor me'at va'aseh harbe. Say little, but do a lot. When it comes to talk as much as necessary. Not too much though. Because when somebody talks too much, he's liable also to say something negative, and automatically he is responsible by the sin of Lashon Hara, right? Gossip and so forth. Va'aseh harbe, when it comes to action, do as much as you can. But at the same time, he says the third saying, Veheve mekabel et kol ha'adam besever panim yafot. Always welcome everyone with a nice face, with a nice expression on your face. In other words, you don't come to people with a bad expression on your face, an angry face, or who knows what, but always have a smile on your lips, and always make sure that the people enjoy your presence when you talk to them. We have to keep in mind that everything that we say here, there are so many commentaries. I don't think there is any book that has so many commentaries as Pirkei Avot, as the book of the fathers. But as we say, for the purpose of passing through Pirkei Avot, we are only explaining the superficial meaning of those holy words. Another Mishnah. Rabban Gamliel haya omer. Rabban Gamliel used to say, now we begin with a new era. The era of the couples has concluded with Shammai and Hillel, and now begins the time of rabbinical great masters of Torah. The first one was Rabban Gamliel, and he used to say, Aseh lecha rav. Make sure you bring, according to the commentary of the Rambam of Maimonides, Aseh lecha rav af al pi she'eno rav hu yeh rav. Make sure you appoint someone to be your teacher, because if you give him a feeling of confidence into him, he might become a good teacher. So make sure you have a rabbi upon you, a teacher. A rabbi means a teacher. Vehistalek min hasafek. And this way you will not bring yourself into any kind of doubts. You have a doubt, ask people. It does not matter how much he knows, but ask him. It's very possible that he finds the answer for you. ואל תרבה לעשר עמדות. Do not, well, he is talking here about maaser, that's the tithing. So, you see, the maaser requires 10% to be given. So sometimes people might just say, approximately, I'll give 10%, approximately, whether it is more or less. No, Rabban Gamliel says, be clear and be precise with that. It has to be 10%. And according to our sages, it has to be 20%. But that's a different subject. Let's continue with the last Mishnah of this chapter. Shimon beno Omer. The son of Rabban Gamliel's name was Shimon. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel. He says the following. כל ימי גודלתי בין החכמים, ולא מצאתי לגוף טוב, אלא שתיקה. All my life I have been raised among the sages, and I could not find anything for the body better than keeping quiet. Quiet is very beneficial to the body. You talk too much, you bring yourself into trouble. I mean, you keep silent as much as possible. That doesn't mean you have to keep silent all the time. I mean, you have to teach, you have to talk, you have to advise. But at the same time, one should minimize the flow of his words, even to the point of keeping quiet. It's better for the body. Velo hamidrash, the second saying of Shimon, Velo hamidrash hu ha'ikar, ela ha'ma'aseh. I mean, the midrash means study. Study is very important, no question about it. But still, the fruit of your study is the action, is what you are going to do. I mean, for example, you learn Talmud so you can perform the precepts of the Torah properly, right? In fact, we find in the Talmud in Masechet Kiddushin that there was a debate between the sages: what's better, Talmud, study, plain study, or action, doings? And they came finally to the conclusion that Talmud Ikar shemevi lidei ma'aseh. The Talmud says that it's the most important is that part which consists of the study. Why? Because it will inevitably bring you into deeds. So we understand that deeds are very important, of course, but at the same time, what is it that exhorts people on doing things is if they acquire the knowledge of Torah. When you have knowledge, automatically you are eager to bring it into deeds. Let me give you an example. Let's say you learn the tractate of Shabbat, a very big tractate of Talmud, and extreme and not easy, right? But let's say you work very hard on it and you study it. It takes you many months, right? But finally you master the Talmud of Masechet Shabbat. This will cause you automatically, in accordance with how much effort you spent on it, it will cause you to do every single mitzvah of Shabbat. Why? Because that's what happens. So let's give you an example. If you learn psychology, in university, then after you have learned 6 years or 5 years psychology, you come out, you have to teach psychology. You know psychology. It's impossible that one learns something and then later does not bring it into fruition. He has to use it, to use his knowledge. So the same thing also when it comes to Torah. When you study Torah, that will help you also to do the act of mitzvah, the deeds of mitzvah. So therefore he says, Velo hamidrash hu ha'ikar ela ha'ma'aseh. To practice is the main thing. And what brings you into good practice is, of course, the study. And he concludes his saying also by saying that we have said what we have said before. If one talks too much, he cannot avoid falling into sin. It could be the sin of lashon hara, of evil talk. It could be the sin of saying the wrong thing. It could be a lie. All this comes because one talks too much. So again, he tells us what his father told us, what he said before. I found that it is more healthier than anything for the body is to keep quiet as much as possible. But why? Because if you talk too much, you cannot avoid falling into the trap of sins. And finally, the last Mishnah is number 18. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel Omer. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel says, Al shlosha devarim ha'olam kayam. The world exists on 3 things. ala din, upon good judgment, ala emet, on the truth. Lies will never bring the world into something that has to do with life. Existence stops to be whenever there is lies. So ala din, good judgment, we have to go according to judgment. Like it says in the Torah, Shoftim veshoterim titen lecha. One of the precepts of the commandments of the Torah is to appoint judges. Because without judges, one is liable to do anything he wants. Nobody will judge him, so he can do anything, the most terrible things. Therefore, the existence of the world depends on judgments. Second, on the emet, the truth. And finally, ala shalom, on peace. If there is no peace, there is no existence, and we know that very well. All you have to do is ask history, and you will find out that lack of peace has caused havoc on this world. So many wars, so many because of that. Shene'emar, as it says in the Bible, Emet u'mishpat shalom, shiftu b'sha'arechem. Judge always in your gates, justice and peace, and with the truth. Right? So that's what concludes the first chapter of Pirkei Avot, which usually is concluded with the saying of Rabbi Hanania ben Akashia. Rabbi Hanania ben Akashia, Omer, he says, Ratza HaKadosh Baruch Hu lezakot et Israel. God wanted very much to benefit the people of Israel, to make them become meritorious. Lefichach hirba lahem Torah u'mitzvot. That's why he gave them the Torah plus 613 mitzvot from the Torah, plus 7 mitzvot of the sages. That's a lot compared to the nations who received only 7 commandments. We received 620 commandments, right? So you might ask the question, why did he give us so much? Maybe, as some of the religions say, that because God hates us. God forbid, because God loves us. He wants us to exist even beyond this world. That's why he gave us so many commandments. Shene'emar, as it says in the Bible, Adonai hafetz lema'an tzidko. That's a pasuk, that's a verse in Isaiah 42. And it says there, Adonai hafetz lema'an tzidko yagdil Torah v'yadir. For the purpose of justice and wellness, God has increased the amount of commandments and the Torah and the mitzvot, and that's why he gave us so many. To make the Torah great and for the sake of righteousness. Okay, my friends, so we have succeeded with the help of God to learn the first chapter of Pirkei Avot. Next week we will tackle the second chapter. Plenty of information is ahead of us. Bye.